Send in the red shirts.
We're discovering.
Even if you jump away, control will not stop coming. Eventually, Leland or some version of him will find you.
Ergo, Discovery's very existence is the problem.
Of course.
Ergo, Discovery's very existence is the problem.
Of course.
Of course, yes, finally, Spock nails it on the head with a little bit of surprisingly self-reflective writing from the writing staff of Discovery. Why is Discovery a problem? Well, the same reasons this whole season why it's been a problem and why it is such a, for me at least, such a departure from season one, which was at least enjoyable because things kind of made sense. The only things that didn't really make sense about season one were all of the changes that we saw to Star Trek canon. Here, just none of it really makes any sense at all. What's interesting about this episode, the main thing about this episode were their vast chunks of time that are spent with crew members reflecting, crying, being introspective because they're about to either die, go into battle, what have you. Lots of Michael hero worship in this episode. And it really wants you to feel something. But look, I just don't feel anything for these characters. And that's not my fault. It's the fault of the writers because most of these characters have been treated just slightly better than Ariam, who got flushed out of an airlock before we got to know who she was. So again, there's no compassion there, no grief per se when that happened. And so all of this, eyes front for Captain Pike, who actually did get a little bit of development. I just didn't like the development. So be that as it may, eyes front for Michael Burnham, eyes front for Captain Pike. I don't care. That whole speech where Pike gives to the bridge crew before he deboards and goes back onto the Enterprise, that was probably one of the best Star Trek speeches, which was ultimately meaningless because I didn't know enough about everybody to really care. The other reason this series has been a problem this season is that they really play fast and loose with the pseudoscience. Now, Star Trek is full of pseudoscience. It has been since 1966. I get that. But at least there was some sort of explanation or some sort of, an explanation for the pseudoscience that didn't break my suspension of disbelief. It all sounded credible in the universe of Star Trek. Here, they just throw stuff out that doesn't make any sense, and they say it really fast so that you really don't have time to pick up on how nonsensical it is. Case in point, while it's really difficult to determine how much time passes between episodes, I'm going to say it couldn't have been more than, 2 or 3 days that Pike was on Boreth, got a time crystal, even though you're not supposed to take the time crystals according to Navik. He takes the time crystal. It can't have been more than 2 or 3 days that they're talking about in the conference room in this episode. They're talking about building another Red Angel suit. They're talking about using the time crystal by detonating a photon torpedo into a supernova. And Michael comes up with the plan to send Discovery and the data into the future. Okay, well, that sounds just like the plan they had for the original Red Angel suit. So why does Michael, who, again, comes up with the solution for everything, why does she utter this revelation as though it's never been tried before? We can send Discovery into the future. Okay, someone could have said, hey, we did try that with the suit, and that kind of got us bupkis. But we'll try it again, Mike. Why not? It's said with such grandeur and eloquence, like, here's the idea that we need. And when they talk about building another Red Angel suit, I'm thinking, why wouldn't you have thought of that a long time ago? That's why I'm like, I don't know how much time passes in between these episodes, but, okay, if you could have done that, if you think you could do that, why wouldn't you have done that way before now? And what is this? I don't get. They can't synthesize a material that they use that's used in the construction of the ship. They can't synthesize that, but they can build a suit that no one knows about and tie it into Michael Burnham's DNA or her RNA, since Dr. Burnham, Mommy Burnham, is no longer available. that just doesn't make sense. I mean, I know all of it's fake, but the fact that you could all of a sudden design a suit just based on schematics that you don't know anything about, and then you're going to somehow figure out how to make the time crystal work. Then Michael comes up with the fact that, well, Michael, where will the suit take you, Michael? And she's like, well, my mom had a tether, so I'm hoping it'll take me to where she is. On what basis? What science is that? What fake science is that? I know the suit creates a wormhole that has a tether attached to it that yanks the suit back to from whence it came. Doesn't make any sense to me, but okay, I'll buy it. But then I'm like, okay, so how does for Michael to say that, well, I hope that the tether will take me to where my mom is she basing that on the fact that she has the same DNA as her mother? Wouldn't that also have to mean that the wormhole, if they even think it was gonna take her back to where Dr. Burnham is, wouldn't that mean that the wormhole must be tied to Burnham DNA as well? So what's creating the wormhole? What's creating the tether? Is it the DNA that is tied into the suit? I'm going to say that's a huge assumption to make. None of it makes any sense. It's all just slapdash. Throw it together because we need to tell this story by any means necessary. It's not something you would have ever seen on any of the previous Trek series. Now, you may see a character say, I hope it works. Or, they'll come up with some sort of solution and they'll say, I hope it works. But the fact is, they would come up with a plausible solution, even in this fictional universe. The show just doesn't play by its own rules. Here's a little bit more pseudo-scientific babble that just comes out of nowhere. Apparently, in this episode, it's been established now that the data from the sphere, the data itself, is in control of Discovery. Now, I don't get that. I can see if Control, the AI, were manipulating the data somehow to control the Discovery. But again, we don't understand. The writers haven't bothered to explain the nature of the data. We just have to accept that the data is such that Control can take over and the universe and destroy all sentient life. Okay, we don't know what the content actually is that makes up this data. But now the data is taking over Discovery. So what? Is the data now sentient? The data itself is now sentient and can take over? Because Leland, who is Control, has not yet arrived to the spot where Discovery is. So how's the data taking over the ship? I also love the scene. There's a scene with Stamets, Tilly, and Jet. Oh, we get to see Jet again. I care about her as much as I care about any of these other characters. And she makes and we also see Poe from Zahia from the first short Trek, The Runaway. I don't like her character. If you go take a look at my review of that that we did for that first short Trek, I said that initially her character was pretty dope. She looked cool. Of course, she has an invisibility power, which never factors into anything, but that's how these writers get down. They introduce things that don't matter ultimately. But yeah, Poe is just as annoying as any other character. She basically comes off as any entitled teenager. Well, she's only 17 years old. Of course, we don't know if that's Earth years or Zahian years. I know I'm asking too much, way too much of these writers to establish that. But yeah, we get a couple of scenes of Poe and Stamets and Jet, and they're talking about, Poe starts trying to calculate nuclear particle physics. Okay, that's fine. I can buy that they need to understand nuclear particle physics to make this time crystal work. Okay, fine, whatever. And I'll even buy the fact that Poe is 17 years old and she's this nuclear scientific genius. Okay, fine. What I don't get is Spock is in that same room. And I'm sorry, if you're a Star Trek fan, you understand that whenever Spock is in the room, Spock is the smartest person in the room. If not the smartest, he's definitely the most logical. And he would definitely be commenting on any plans, theories, solutions, offering his insight, his opinion, telling you whether or not it's right or wrong. Of course, this Spock stays silent throughout most of it, has nothing to say. And again, the writers show they don't really understand the character of Spock. They made sure that his hair and beard were in place. Oh, that looked immaculate. Other than that, not buying this character at all. Now, I'm not a scientist, but I think I did get a line written by these writers of Discovery that indicate that they think that if they just throw out something that sounds scientific, it works. Where we have Jet Reno while Poe is calculating the nuclear equation or whatever. And I think Tilly says, "What's happening right now?" And Jet Reno says, "Oh, you know, it's E equals MC squared stuff." And once again, I'm not a scientist, but I have heard of Einstein's theory of relativity, where E equals energy, M equals mass, and C, which is squared, is equal to the speed of light. I have heard of it. Can I put it into practice? No. But somehow it just doesn't seem to fit that that has anything to do with nuclear physics. I could be wrong. If there are any nuclear particle physicians or scientists out there, please educate me. But somehow it just comes off as, oh, let's throw that in to make it sound like we really know what we're talking about scientifically. Let's have Jet Reno say that. Oh, by the way, that reminds me, and I'm going to say this. I noticed that in that scene, it was all about the girl power. It was all about the girl power. You had Pike, the captain, in that room, and you had Spock, who I said is supposed to be the smartest guy in any room. And it has nothing to do with his gender, about him being smart. I'm not suggesting that the women in the room aren't smart, but I just noticed that all the lines were given to all the women. And you had Spock say one line, maybe you had Pike say a couple lines, but when it came to figuring out all of the scientific stuff, guys had nothing to say. Hey, it's possible that could happen, but not with Spock. So I got no problem with agendas, but when they want to hit me over the head, just doesn't work for me. Doesn't work for me whatsoever. Some other things that just didn't make any sense. Folding hallways in space. Really, people? So this is how you evacuate Discovery. Discovery is apparently such an advanced ship, and it's huge compared to the Enterprise because we see them side by side. So is it a more advanced ship? I don't know. But I tend to think that taking the time to have corridors unfold into space and then somehow miraculously linking up with another ship that's of another class just doesn't, no, no. First of all, does that mean all Starfleet or all Federation ships have docking ports for these hallways that can somehow withstand the rigors of deep space, the vacuum of space? There's that. That's a question. And if you're going to have these hallways, right, what sense does it make that you have to make them unfold in space, right? Which means you have to cut out such a big portion of the side of your ship to store them in. Why not cut out a smaller, maybe deeper section of the ship so that they telescope out and you have less weak joints in these hallways? I can't believe I'm actually trying to justify how to make hallways in space better. Speaking of those hallways, I don't know if this is horrible editing, and I watched the show twice. I tend to watch these shows twice so I can make sure my notes are halfway correct. There's a scene where we see Michael once again being somewhat insubordinate to Captain Pike. Captain Pike says to Mike, Mike, let's go. And she basically says, there's no way I'm going to let so many years of my mother's research go down the drain or whatever. You know, this is after Pike has told her, get your ass out of here, we gotta go. All right, so be that as it may, we see Pike exit that room where the time crystal is, and for whatever reason, he kind of looks back, hesitates and looks back, then he walks out. I don't know what the hell that was, but clearly we've established from a spatial perspective that Mike is left behind in that room. We see Pike leave the room, she's there. We see Pike walking through the corridor with Saru. And then when he gets to the Enterprise, we see Mike there. Okay, how'd that happen? Did she use the time crystal to jump ahead? I don't know. To jump ahead in the future to get on the Enterprise? That seemed weird. That's called bad editing. Or I would recommend firing your script continuity person and getting a new one. But hey, Stamets has a crew now. I don't know where all these people came from, but Stamets now has a crew. Of course, he looks like he treats them like shit, much like most people treat everyone on this ship. But he's finally got a crew. One episode short of the finale. What did you guys think of Georgiou's line that she says to Pike as she's beaming him off Discovery to the Enterprise? She says, "I'm tearing, you know, from your mirror universe." And he responds, "What mirror universe?" and gives her a wink. The hell does that mean? I still don't know if these people know she's Terran or if they don't. Again, this show doesn't play by its own rules. I thought it was a secret that she was Terran. I kind of highly doubt that Starfleet, even Section 31, would have a fascist working for them. So that little knowing wink and that line, "What mirror universe?" Does that mean Pike knows about the mirror universe and doesn't care, or what the hell does that mean? I don't know. I don't think the writers know. Maybe you guys know, so hopefully you can tell me. But I'm going to wrap this up with the subject of Michael Burnham hero worship, which we've seen consistently this season. We've got Amanda and Sarek saying, "Michael, we are so proud of you and everything you are about to do." Okay, I get it. They're her adopted parents, but it's just grating. It's grating. There's a lot of crying, a lot of this whole, a lot of pathos and everything. Guys, listen, I get it that people are going to be sad because, stuff happens in deep space. Stuff happens on Star Trek. But it is about the mission and about still comporting yourself like a Starfleet officer. That doesn't mean you're not going to get into your feelings. But Michael does it all the time now. At least in season 1, she was a very strong person, and I felt like she was doing it out of no regard for her own, completely selfless. Here, it's like, I feel like she's doing it just because she wants to be a martyr. She wants people to get in her feels with her. I'm reminded of an episode of Star Trek TNG. I think it was the one where Data winds up on a planet in the midst of first contact, and he's exposed to radiation. He forgets his memory, something like that. And that was the main plot of the episode. Now, if that is the right episode, the B plot of that episode was Deanna Troi wanted to take the commander's test to become a commander because she said in the episode Disaster that she liked stretching herself, having to be in charge of the bridge. So she goes on a simulation on the holodeck to take the final phase of the test, which is in engineering. She keeps failing, and she eventually realizes that it's not so much about knowing protocols. It is a test of strength of will and character because she has to send Geordi, the holographic Geordi, to his death. After she does that, Riker comes into the holodeck and says, "You passed." She breaks down and says, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. She started crying, and she broke down because she realized that she couldn't do it. And that doesn't make her a weak character. It makes her strong, realizing her limitations. Michael Burnham cries all the time, but yet she's still capable of doing everything. And that rings false. It's like she volunteers to do dangerous missions, and then she wants everyone, she's like, okay, now everyone has to feel sorry for me. I'm going to start crying, and I need you guys to start crying too. And the most stupid line of the entire episode is Captain Pike going down the line, praising all of the crew members of Discovery. And then he goes to Spock and just says, there aren't any words. Okay, that's great. That's fine. But then he saves Michael for last, as opposed to Spock, his science officer, who serves with him on Enterprise. And here's the line. He says something like, it's very rare that people get to discover their heart. Whatever that means, okay? All right. It's supposed to be philosophical or deep. I don't know. It sounds stupid to me. And then, now I'm quoting this line. He says, I'm very grateful to have been here to watch you discover what's in your heart. That's why he's there. He's grateful for that. He's had at least one crew member die under his orders, and this is what he's going to say. This is what he's going to go away with. A memory of Michael. It just, stop it. And then it's not Saru or Spock who commands the bridge crew to stand at attention for Pike. It's Michael Burnham, of course. It's Michael Burnham. And you know what I would have loved to have heard Mike say to Captain Pike in that moment of attention, in response to him having said that he's so grateful to her, being able to see her find her heart, or whatever the hell he said, what's in her heart. I would have loved for her to have said, Captain, I apologize for being so insubordinate to you. And if I may break the fourth wall, you deserve better writing from the Discovery writing staff. And listen, I lied. I want to end on this, and I'm going to have a good time with this one. We get to see the bridge of the Enterprise. And wow, what ADD-addled, bright, shiny object hunting design person made that the bridge. I can't even put it into words. If you're old enough to remember a 1980s movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, it was called The Running Man. That looked like a set from that movie. It looked like an 80s roller derby or an 80s video arcade. It looked like a Thai massage parlor set in the Blade Runner universe. Maybe it looked also like Studio 54 back in the 70s. So much neon. I could have seen easily a disco ball hanging from the center of that bridge. So many strips of light on everything. No distractions at all. I would love to go into battle on a bridge like that. It reminded me of, if you're a Seinfeld fan, there was an episode with Kenny Rogers Roasters, and there's this, the running gag is that the huge neon sign is shining into Kramer's bedroom in his apartment, and he switches apartments with Jerry because he doesn't want to go back in there with the Red Menace. Can you imagine the Captain Pike calling for red alert on that ship? It'd be like, oh, Jesus, stop it, stop, please. It's blinding me. I can't see the view screen. I'll get the photon torpedoes ready. Just stop with the red alert. Jesus. So in conclusion, we wait with bated breath for the finale of Star Trek Discovery. And I won't have to do this for some time. I mean, we don't know when season 3 is going to debut again, but I tell you what, if season 3 is as bad as this season is or was, if I decide to review season 3 episodes, I'm going to change the tone of my reviews. It's just going to be comedy hour. It's just going to be, I'll probably just do a list of all the things that were wrong and funny and stupid. I'm not going to talk about the deeper issues of Discovery or the deeper themes of each episode because there really aren't any. There really aren't. I'm just going to have a list, and it's just going to be more comedy based. But we do wait for the next episode, the finale, and I am prepared to watch the writers and the producers put together a finale that's going to be a claptrap, just slapdash, whatever 1940s terms I can come up with. It's just going to be a melange, that's a nice word, a melange of patching all of the plot holes, tying up all the loose ends, whether they make sense or not, just patching it all together in the attempt to finalize everything that we saw this season that just seemed to be thrown against the wall. I don't expect any coherence. I suspect I'll have to suspend my disbelief completely, but I'm going to watch it. I have to. I've come too far. I've come too far. All right. So that's my show. That's my review. Sorry if I've offended anyone. I know I've gotten a few Facebook posts saying, why do you watch the show? If you hate the show, why do you watch it? Stop watching it. Stop complaining. I might just do that. But like I say, I'm an amateur critic, but being a critic nonetheless, we don't watch only the things that we like. We have to watch it all. And that's what I want to do. That's the plan. I want to be able to say that I did watch all of season 2, that I did not give up, that they couldn't break me. They couldn't break me. All right. I will see you next week.